let's start with the first trade that happened, and it was the Pelicans acquiring CJ McCollum from the Blazers, who continue to tear their roster down. The rumor is that they're not really rebuilding. They intend to reload around Damian Lillard. That'll be part of the calculus. Let's get to the details very quickly. The Blazers are sending CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell to the New Orleans Pelicans for Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Thomas Satoransky, Didi Louzada, a 2022 first-round pick, and 2 second-rounders. The first rounder that New Orleans is sending to Portland will only convey if it lands between numbers 5 and 14. That pick was originally lottery protected, owed to Charlotte. They reworked the protections on it. So now if it lands 5 to 14, it will go to Portland. However, if it doesn't, if it lands 1, 2, 3, 4, or if it lands 15 through 30, it will not go to Portland. And it's been phrased as that first round commitment will still be a first round commitment, and it kicks in to the future. I've yet to see the pick details on this, and I was going through it. This is 4 a.m. on Wednesday morning at this point, and I haven't seen anything. If I missed it, you can get at me. But the Pelicans have a treasure trove of picks here, so they can offer a lot of different things to Portland. Let's start with, so that I can timestamp this properly, let's start with the Pelicans side of this. I think there are negative connotations when you see a team that's not a contender give up a first round pick. And I just don't feel that way here. I was listening to, and this wasn't actually the basis of what I wrote when I gave the Pelicans some favorable thoughts, but I was listening to the In the Know podcast, another Blue Wire podcast hosted by Shamit Dua and Mason Ginsberg. Check it out if you're interested in hearing more about the Pelicans. And they noted that people killed the Pelicans for prioritizing cap space and then missing out on Kyle Lowry this past summer, as an example. And so now the Pelicans go out and just get a guy in CJ McCollum who addresses a need, and people are worried about the luxury tax implications because they have inside of $6 million of room now below the luxury tax, inside of $8 million, I think, next year, if the sheet I have is correct. And so that's just like a big deal because the Pelicans aren't going to win a championship in one of the next 2 seasons. I don't care. I understand that CJ McCollum is expensive, 2 years and basically $70 million left on his deal, but he addresses a big need for the Pelicans, who have quietly, their defense has outperformed their offense this season. A large part of that is Zion Williamson being out. An even bigger part of that is the fact that their backcourt rotation has been banged up and by and large just absolute shit. They are 28th, their guards, in combined 3-point percentage, and no backcourt is less efficient when it comes to off the dribble jumpers this season. Those numbers are per NBA.com. And so, yeah, CJ is going to come in. I don't know if he helps a defense that's been, roughly league average for over their past 30 games, at least when you look at the numbers. They've still struggled to get stops in the half court. That's been a little bit better since the new year. CJ's not going to help you control the glass. He's not going to help you. He's going to be a risk if you're getting screened. He's not going to help you prevent opponents from getting out in transition. But, and Josh Hart, let's not lose sight of them giving him up here. He was important to how the Pelicans were defending and the way that they were defending. I just can't bring myself to care because the offense was the bigger need right now. And this CJ McCollum contract, 1, they still have wiggle room under the tax. And 2, he comes off the books when Zion Williams' next deal is going to kick in. And so I'm not going to get into the logistics of, will Zion even be there? I'll just believe it if he wants out when I see it, because we've just never seen someone walk away from the type of money from which you would have to walk away, in essence. So, and just the injury this season to his foot and not having played, not knowing if he's going to play, he doesn't really have a ton of leverage to just be like, yeah, I'm going to let this ride. I'll play out on my qualifying offer and then enter unrestricted free agency. I just doubt that happens. And also, if that is something the Pelicans are worried about, you make a trade like this to try and maximize what's going on around him. I think McCollum is going to be a good fit next to Zion. He's played off the ball a ton in Portland his whole career next to Dame. He is shooting better than 36.5% on off the dribble threes over each of the past 2 seasons. He's been a mid-range maestro. I don't concern myself with the way he's going to age as much, I guess, as others. He's a bucket getter for one, but 30 years is not necessarily ancient. And we're talking about a guy who doesn't necessarily have to adjust his game as he ages, because it's not prided on explosion or playing above the rim. It's basically just the opposite. It's smoothness, fluidity, craft. So he gives the Pelicans some of those in between shots. He can work as sort of a secondary setup man. He's improved with that over the years. I don't know if you necessarily want him running units on your own. I think it depends on the defensive personnel that you're going to have around him here. As the guys on the Inno podcast did point out, there could be some overlap with Brandon Ingram offensively. That was just not something I gave a ton of consideration to when I was thinking about this trade in the moment. I just ultimately think, especially with Zion out for now, his experience, CJ's playing in Portland next to Damian Lillard, but also having Anthony Simons there, seeing some of the guard rotations that they ran out. I just don't think he's going to have an issue fitting in here. And he fills this huge need. And I ended up liking this deal for the Pelicans because they didn't give up a primetime asset. I was a huge Nickeil Alexander-Walker fan, but he's just like chaotically erratic at this point. And unless he's going to learn to be more of a complementary player who doesn't need the ball in his hands, they've gotten a player who can now do that in CJ. Josh Hart is a loss, to be sure, and he was on a friendly contract, a non-guaranteed salary for next season before a player option the following season after that. One of the weirdest deals, by the way, that I could remember, where there's only one season guaranteed, but the second is team control and the third is a player option. Interesting structure there. I was surprised that he didn't get like multi-year guaranteed money worth more than that on the market this past summer. Neither here nor there. He's not a player that you necessarily quibble about losing, and he's one of those guys where you think in theory he is shooting better from 3-point range than he actually is without fail every single season. And so there's a real upgrade here. And unless I find out that the pick that Portland gave up is like, I don't even like an unprotected pick next season or like theirs, I'm not going to be able to hate this deal. In fact, I like it. I know people have mentioned that maybe they'll reroute Larry Nance Jr., given that Jackson Hayes has played a lot better. They have Jonas Valanciunas and then Zion Williamson long term. I wrote about this. The front lineup packages they can now roll out there. I love them. And I would keep Larry Nance Jr. I mean, someone to give you a first round pick for him or blow you away with an offer that continues to upgrade your backcourt or deepen your wing rotation, then maybe consider it. But I don't have a problem with them just keeping Larry Nance Jr. He's been banged up again as he tends to be. You could also try moving him over the offseason or into next season once Zion comes back and you have a better feel for what this team is. There's still another year at sub $10 million, at sub mid-level money at this point on his contract. And so that was another huge part of this. This is not a throwaway player. The Blazers gave up a first round pick to get Larry Nance Jr. over the summer. A trade, again, that I liked for them because there's going to be some criticism or at least confusion with the Blazers coming up. And so I just don't understand what the actual problem is with this deal. The opportunity cost wasn't too high. Yes, they're paying CJ, but like your books just become flexible again in 2 years. There are extensions that can happen and things, but we're talking about the first year of Zion Williamson's next deal, which also just happens to be the final season of Brandon Ingram's. CJ McCollum I'm misspeaking. CJ McCollum's off the books the year after Zion Williamson's deal kicks in and the year after with 2 years left on Brandon Ingram's contract. So just to clarify, as I'm stumbling through that, McCollum, the final year of his contract will also be the first of Zion's big deal. So you do have a year where you could be incredibly expensive, but there's wiggle room to deal with next season. And look, you worry just about that when the time comes. You have Devontae Graham, the year that we're talking about, 2023, 2024. Again, that projects to be the first year of Zion's next deal. You have Devontae Graham at $12.1 million, Valanciunas at $15.4, Brandon Ingram at $33.8, and CJ McCollum at $35.8. The McCollum one is egregious. The Brandon Ingram one is very high. You'll have Zion on a max, presumably. None of those deals are movable. McCollum will be in his age 32 season, but unless he sucks as an expiring contract, you could still probably break him up into smaller ones, or there are something you can do there. Brandon Ingram's going to be young enough to where if he's continuing to play it at this level, you're going to be able to move him when he has 2 years left on his deal, including that one. And then Valanciunas and Devontae Graham, that's technically the final year of Graham's deal. There's a non-guarantee in his fourth year. Those are both expiring contracts that you can move there. Well, Jonas will definitely be a quality player. Graham's shot making has suffered. I'm interested to see if he's maybe the person who benefits a lot from CJ being here, just to sort of clean up his shot quality. I also don't know why you would play those two together that often, certainly starting them for now, but just if you have the option, I would probably want Devontae Graham leading the second unit. You could use it as CJ, but he's just making so much money that doesn't really track with me. And that will be the concern, is how do they sort of defend like this? They don't have a ton of great options. Herb Jones is an absolute monster and it might be candidate. I'm not talking about just like rookie, an all rookie team. He might be just an all defensive candidate, period. Again, I haven't gone through that yet, though. And you still do have Trey Murphy on this roster who gives you some positional malleability. It's not outside the realm of possibility where if you actually start playing him heavy minutes, yeah, he can log some time for you at the 2. And so they have a lot of options here. And I don't think they tethered themselves to anything too restrictive, just to be honest with you. If you have a problem with them with the opportunity cost here, I honestly don't know what to tell you. Cap space isn't going to mean as much in a market like New Orleans. We just saw it this past summer, and they went out, they got a higher quality player who's been a proven performer through a lot of postseason games. If he's healthy, the Pelicans, who project to make the play-in at this point, when you kind of look at how the rest of the Western Conference is settled below them, they might be able to cause some problems. I mean, just in offense, what if we get to see a lineup of McCollum, Ingram, Valanciunas, and Zion Williamson? And then I'd rather see Herb Jones in there. But like if Devontae Graham is on the court for those minutes, like that lineup is going to be absolutely bonkers when it comes to scoring. Good luck keeping up with them there. And you now have this variety of ways that you can close games if you do, in fact, keep Larry Nance Jr. Could you maybe see some small ball 5 from him where, no, you don't want to put Jonas Valanciunas on the bench necessarily, but if Zion comes back, the Nance Zion front court with maybe Herb Jones on there as well is something I desperately would want to see. I like this trade for the Pelicans. It's an acceleration, I guess, but it's not an egregious one. I don't view it as David Griffin making this panic move. I know people believe he's on the hot seat, and he probably is. Again, what was the primetime asset they gave up here? Is it Josh Hart? Is it Nickeil Alexander-Walker? Like, do you think he's going to blow up? Is it, I suppose, if they send a lottery pick, like that is something to give up a lottery pick for CJ McCollum, but you also got Larry Nance Jr. as part of this equation. So we romanticize picks. The Pelicans have a ton of them. They were built for sort of a consolidation trade, and this is just like that in miniature. It's nothing that's too much of a home run swing, but it's better than a needless single here. So I really liked the deal for them.